The Miami Dolphins will win the AFC East. The AFC East will be an extremely tough division, but with a great roster and close to perfect coaching, the Dolphins have a case to top the division in 2023. I'm Chase Keller, and tune into this dive of the Miami Dolphins, why I believe they will finish 12-5, and how they came up in 6th in my 2023 NFL Power Rankings. The Miami Dolphins offense is a very strong one for several reasons. It barely cracks the top 10 in my rankings, but with a good quarterback and many good options, the Dolphins look strong for 2023. So let's discuss this offense. At quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa is listed as my 11th best starting quarterback, tied with Kyler Murray. Tua almost retired this offseason, and he has had a massive doubt involving concussions. But when healthy, he's one of the best QBs in the NFL. Tua really struggled during his last hurrah, putting together 7 touchdowns and 5 interceptions from weeks 12 to 16. In his entire 2022 season, he had more turnover-worthy plays than he had big-time throws, which is very concerning. Tua's bright spots are extremely bright, and he's had some very impressive games. In 2022 alone, he had 3 games with 3+ touchdowns and 0 interceptions. He also had a 6-touchdown, 2-interception game where he completed 72% of passes and beat a very strong Baltimore Ravens team. Tua has been leaning more towards the pocket passer kind of guy, as he had 0 rushing touchdowns for the first time in his career last year. Is that really a bad thing though? So when Tua plays well, he plays really well. Hopefully he stays injury-free in 2023 so that he can show his true greatness. The running back room here is an interesting one, as for now, there's a guy close to star talent with 2 intriguing backup level players. For now, Raheem Mostert remains in the good starter tier. He has made for a great come-up story, and as a starter last season with no injury concern, he pulled through with yet another impressive performance. Mostert's skill set allows him to surge past the line of scrimmage with his athleticism and shiftiness out of the backfield. In fact, Mostert's worst yards per carry season was in 2022, and he still had 4.9 yards per carry. Sure, Mostert worked in a minor committee, which is expected to extend this season, but we can't underrate Mostert at all. To his back, they have Jeff Wilson, another former 49er. Wilson is a guy I've wanted to see in a backfield to himself, but after 2022, it's clear that he works extremely well in a committee with a lot of opportunities. Speaking of high opportunities, Devon Achane will be seeing these on the ground and in the air with his freak athleticism and solid vision. I'm just not sold on his 3-down ability given that his play strength is pretty subpar. Even then, I think he will work completely fine in a committee. Now let's discuss this elite wide receiver core. I think it's a no-doubter that this group tops the league, given that they have 2 superstar wideouts. Yes, Cincinnati does come close with their 2 superstar wideouts, but the top 2 guys' overalls do not match the Miami overalls. For example, Jamar Chase reached a 93 overall this season, while Tyreek Hill is currently a 95. Hill had his best career year in 2022, putting together 1,700 yards and 7 touchdowns. It's obvious that Hill is the fastest guy in football, but what else is he? Hill is an insanely good deep threat, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but his route running is underrated. It doesn't matter if he's fast. Hill is shifty and crisp in his route breaks, and we have to respect that. To follow, T. Higgins is an 88 overall, while Jalen Waddle jumped him to receive an 89 after last season's masterclass. Despite being wide receiver 2, he went over 100 yards 6 times last season, and over 8 receptions only twice? Yeah, Waddle went for 18.1 yards per reception last year. Waddle was targeted 16 times with passes over 20 yards, and he brought in 10 of those with 3 touchdowns and a whopping 0 drops. Waddle is now a superstar, and Miami is lucky to have 2 of them at wide receiver. After these 2, it's not fantastic. Chosen Anderson is becoming a bit overhated, but he's nothing better than a good backup caliber player. Braxton Berrios was a solid pickup, but he's in the same boat as Anderson. And Cedric Wilson would be a manageable starter if it wasn't for a disappointing 2022 season. Hopefully he can get back on track to become that manageable starter. Now, the tight end room lost Mike Gesicki with no true replacement, so it's no surprise that it's in the terrible tier. There's not much to discuss here, so let me make this quick. Durham Smythe is now the tight end 1, and he needs to shift skill sets to be worth this spot. Right now, he's a primary blocker with under-average receiving abilities, but he's unlocked volume in the receiving game before. Now he just needs it again. Tyler Kroft showed promise with the Jets last season, but ultimately, he needs more volume to be considered a starter, let alone a starting caliber player. And Eric Saubert couldn't keep up well for Denver's backup spot last season, so he will likely do the same this year. Does that put this into perspective? It's going to be hard to save this tight end room, and with a drop in talent for the tight ends in the 2024 NFL Draft, obviously instead of Brock Bowers, this tight end room is in trouble. That was very negative to say the least. It gets a lot better with the offensive line, which has taken drastic improvements since being the NFL's worst just a couple of years ago. Beginning with Terron Armstead, he hasn't been at superstar level for a couple of years, but he's still a very efficient pass blocker who won't particularly be to his blind side given that he's left-handed. He has dealt with injuries lately, but that shouldn't be too big of a concern. But wait, if Armstead isn't the blindside tackle, then who is? That's a massive hole in this O-line, as I don't think projected starter Austin Jackson is anywhere near close to starting caliber. So looking around this offensive line, it's hard to put someone here. Though for Miami's best benefit, I believe it should be Isaiah Wynn, given that he played 7 games there last year. I'm aware that Wynn is the backup left guard on their official depth chart, but if you watch these videos, you know I like to manipulate the ratings. Wynn may have been a liability last season, but the 3 seasons prior were pretty good, and I believe Wynn deserves another chance. The second question mark in the line is at left guard, which Wynn is projected to play backup at. The current listed starter is Liam Eichenberg, another guy who shouldn't come close to a starter. I mean, neither should Robert Jones, but after 9 games at left guard in 2022, I think it's promising enough. Jones was an undrafted free agent in the 2021 draft, but he took a leap in snaps for 2022, and I believe he will do the same for 2023. He's still a 61 overall though, and that sits in the 3rd string tier. Yeah, not particularly starting caliber either. I've been negative enough here. Connor Williams became a star center after a strong 2022 campaign, and his continuous improvement should give Miami fans hope for the inside of the line. Another guy to spend hope on is guard Robert Hunt, a guy who made a massive leap in 2022. He was the most efficient he's ever been, and that gives me enough reason to mark him as the team's first breakout grade. There's 2 more breakout grades on this roster, so keep watching to find out. Anyways, this offensive coaching is on the rise, and Mike McDaniel is going to be someone to watch for this upcoming season. McDaniel is a Shanahan-type coach, and it showed very early on with his use of multiple running backs and an efficient off-to-the-side passing attack. Miami came up in 11th for points scored and 6th for yards gained in 2022. And given that it was McDaniel's first ever season as head coach, along with the fact that for 4 of those weeks Miami went to a backup quarterback, 2022 was a very impressive season for McDaniel. To summarize, the Miami Dolphins have a lot to look forward to for this offense. With a head coach that fits perfectly for this roster, it's time to see if the Miami Dolphins can march forward to a division win. I don't want to catch unnecessary hate for saying Miami will win the division, but the defensive section should explain enough. Last season, Miami's defense heavily underperformed due to not so great defensive coaching. The loss of Brian Flores took a massive hit to the team, and as a result, Miami finished 24th in points allowed and 18th in yards allowed. Now, with Vic Fangio a defensive coordinator, this group should go back to their elite days. Even after last season's performance, Miami still has the 2nd best defensive roster in the NFL, and let's talk about it. The edge group seems elite on paper, but Bradley Chubb did disappoint as a Dolphin last season. Even then, Jalen Phillips comes in and brings this group very close to an elite level. Phillips is a competitor with one of the best comeback stories I've ever heard. Talent-wise, he has some great length and activity and play strength, using his technique very well to swim around edge blockers. Statistical-wise, he put together 70 pressures and 7 sacks last season. And pressures, guess what, were 7th in the NFL last year. He was in the likes of Myles Garrett and Danielle Hunter for pressures, so who says he isn't a stud? As for Chubb, he started off strong with Denver, but after the trade to Miami, his pass rush efficiency fell off a bit. He put together more pressures in 70 less snaps while in Denver, and even in run defense, he was making more run stops while with the Broncos. I'm not saying Chubb doesn't deserve to start, I'm not saying that at all. But after a revealing 2022 season, he does fall to the manageable starter tier. Yet he's being reunited with Vic Fangio, and that could be big for this team. As for the depth, there are 2 other guys here that make cases for good backup caliber talents. Andrew Van Ginkel is a good run defending edge rusher, and his rotational volume has been the perfect amount for efficiency. And Malik Reed is slightly inconsistent, but he's never been a great pass rusher. Nonetheless, he is also a good rotational run defender, and he should be utilized exactly like Van Ginkel was for 2023. The interior side of things is also in the great tier. They have another superstar here, the second of 3 on this defense, and the depth is also very solid and promising. Starting with the proven superstar in Christian Wilkins, who is continuing to develop into more and more of a stud. He's got very good run defense, but his pass rush is starting to develop as well. He's been phenomenal all around, and 2022 was a big leap trying to become the best interior guy in the league. Obviously, he's not really close to being there yet, but the efforts are very much showing. I want to spend more time on these other guys. Zach Sealer is an underrated defender with great run defending abilities. He was 10th in run stops last season, along with being 4th in run stop percentage out of players who played over 250 run defending snaps. A jump to 874 total snaps last year was worth it, as he's worked towards better efficiency year by year. He's more of a run defender, but he does have pass rush upside after 31 pressures in 2022. Add on that Sealer was a 7th round draft pick, and Miami found a diamond in the rough. I loved Emmanuel Ogbah after his 2021 performance, but after a limited and disappointing 2022, he falls right back to a good backup caliber player. Even then, Ogbah is a good pass rushing inside guy, and hopefully with no injury concern, he can return to a manageable level starter. I'm not a fan of Raekwon Davis, and I don't believe he should be a starter on this defensive line. His draft concerns over his athleticism and knockback ability have been shown as negatives as a player now. Overall, he's just been a disappointment to me. Moving on to the linebackers, they do land as an under average group. They do have 2 starting caliber players, but with okay depth and nobody great here, they land in this tier. David Long was a pickup I really liked for Miami this offseason. He was one of the NFL's best run defenders in 2022, being 13th in run stop percentage out of 200 plus run snap players. Even outside of the run defense, he was a top tier blitzer and an average coverage defender. Now, I just need to see another great season. Long gets breakout grade number 2 on this roster. Again, there's still 1 to go, and it's very close, so keep watching. At linebacker number 2, Jerome Baker barely makes the manageable starter tier. I was very high on Jerome Baker, and he had his best season in 2022, but his first 4 years were not promising. He's a solid coverage linebacker with elite blitzing abilities, but his run defense needs a lot of work. The hope is that Baker continues this momentum that he's got going. Their one good rotational piece is Duke Riley, who has been a good coverage linebacker. That's about all he's got going for him, and he's nothing better than a rotational piece. The massive trade for Jalen Ramsey has elevated this cornerback room to elite levels. There's no doubt that Ramsey is still a superstar with his efficient coverage abilities and instincts. He does commonly give up big plays, but there's not enough reason to not have him as a top 5 corner. Here's the issue. We don't have a genuine timetable for Jalen Ramsey's return. He did go down with a knee injury in training camp this year, and that is going to hold him back from returning by season start. If Jalen Ramsey does miss the entire season somehow, the cornerback room goes from elite to under average, the Miami defense goes from 2nd to 12th, and their overall team goes from 6th to 8th. From that, the Bills would be my projected division winners over the Miami Dolphins. I will give the Dolphins the luck of the draw and keep Ramsey here for now. As for Xavier Howard, he was one of the NFL's best cornerbacks in 2020, but he has lost that touch since, especially in 2022, where he allowed the highest completion percentage of his career with 67.5% and the highest passer rating of his career with 121.1. It's only been 2 years since he was elite, so he still remains as a good starter. And finally, the third and final breakout grade here is Kader Kohou. He's breaking out due to Ramsey's injury, and now he gets to step up from 2022 undrafted free agent to starting caliber player. He gained the maximum 15 points allowed in one season, and that makes him a guy I had as a 7th round pick to now a guy I believe will explode as a starting corner. Now, he has time to prepare for a bunch of snaps. Going into the safety room here, it's another under average group. They do have Javon Holland, who has been off to a strong start. I do believe his rookie year was miles better than his second season, but it's not like he was any bad last year. It's almost like he was so good his rookie season that instead of developing, he just let the rest of the league catch up to him. I'm still expecting a big 2023, but I can't give him that breakout grade. Now, these next 3 guys all can start for Miami at safety number 2 this year. I will go in order of overall. 68 overall, Deshaun Elliott has been consistently a good backup caliber player with his good run support capabilities. His coverage is just okay, and I'm not expecting much of him as a deep safety. 67 overall, Verone McKinley was a guy I was very high on as a 2022 prospect, enough to give him 65 as a rookie. He was good in his 250 snaps, but he's not projected to have a big role in 2023. 65 overall, Brandon Jones is the projected starter, but I only see him as a manageable backup with his below average coverage and decent run support. Now, the defensive coaching is something that I mentioned before I even went through the roster. It was awful last year. Now bring in Vic Fangio, an A+ defensive coordinator, and this defense is looking stronger than ever. Fangio is historically an elite defensive coordinator, elevating defenses to the top of the league with his traditional 4-3 scheme. I'm not sure if he will run the 4-3 with Miami given that they're leaning towards 3-4, but what will happen for sure is the lack of blitzing and a bigger focus on preventing the passing attack through coverage. In a roster like Miami's, this works very well as many of these guys are good in coverage. To summarize, Miami has a top-tier defensive roster along with the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. The hope is that this franchise moves away from the disappointment that was the 2022 season and explodes. Before I end every video, I go over the rating splits for offense, defense, special teams, coaching, and overall team. If you are interested in how this rating system works, it is listed in the description below. To kick us off, the offense came out at a 77.14, which is 10th in the NFL, 8th in the AFC, and 2nd in the AFC East. With Jalen Ramsey, the defense comes out at a 76.81, which is 2nd in the NFL, 2nd in the AFC, and 2nd in the AFC East, only behind the Buffalo Bills. The special teams came out at a 69.58, which is 29th in the NFL, 15th in the AFC, and last in the AFC East. And the coaching came out at a 9 out of 10, which is a 79 in my rating system. Tied for 8th in the NFL, tied for 4th in the AFC, and tied for 1st in their division. As an overall team, they receive a 77.11, which is 1st in their division, 4th in their conference, and 6th in the NFL. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. There are 5 teams remaining, and you're missing out. Once again, I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and thank you guys so much for choosing this channel as your source of sports coverage. I'll see you guys in the next video.